I've used this title for a number of sermons, but it's going to take me about 3 weeks to unpackage what I want to share with you today. The title is Great Expectations. You know, sadly, in the book by Charles Dickens, Great Expectations, you remember there was a lady called, I think her name was Miss Spathership. Yeah? Remember Miss Spathership? On her wedding day, she was jilted. And so what she did, she closed the doors, shut the shutters to make sure no sunlight would come in. The banquet was all set, all ready. And she relived the terror and the torment of that day for the rest of her life, until eventually the house caught fire. Do you remember the film? And in the book? And she just lived locked in a miserable day. And I want to tell you, there's lots of people today who are actually locked in the disappointments of the past. But you've got to have an expectation, because of the God we serve. We need to have a great expectation that God is going to do greater than we could ever think or imagine. Amen. And I really would appreciate if you get involved in the sermon today, because I'm talking about real stuff in real lives where God really has an answer. You with me on that? So what we're going to do, we're going to read first of all from the book of Ephesians 3:14-21. Before I read from Ephesians 3:14 through 21, I want to say this, is that Paul always, when he lays a doctrinal foundation, what he then does, he makes a practical application of how we should live our lives. Now, for instance, in chapters 1 and 2 of the book of Ephesians, you find there that it says that God has blessed us with all spiritual blessings in the heavenly realm. This is us. That we've all been blessed. That we've been united with Christ and that we're loved. That we've been chosen and adopted into his family. That we now find new freedom and the forgiveness of all of our sins. That there's a great inheritance that we have as followers of Christ, as his disciples. That we have the promise of the Holy Spirit living inside each one of us. And not only that, the Holy Spirit is given as a guarantee that God has promised, will fulfill that which he has promised. So then we come to chapter 3 of Ephesians. And as I say, it's going to take me about 3 weeks to unpackage this, but I want you to listen very carefully to the Word of God. Ephesians 3:14. For this reason I bow my knees to the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, from whom the whole family in heaven and earth is named, that he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might through his Spirit in the inner man, that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width, the length, the depth, and the height, to know the love of Christ which passes knowledge, that you may be filled with the fullness of God. Now listen to this. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we think or ask, according to the power that is working us, to him be glory in the church by Christ Jesus to all generations forever and ever. Amen. Amen. As Christians, we should have great expectations, because it says, now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that is at work in us. I want to make a statement and say this. Jesus always did way beyond what people expected him to do. They didn't have, and by the way, neither do you, they did not have a problem that he could not meet. And neither do you. Amen. Thank you for that. Amen. So, no one has a problem that they can bring to God that God cannot defeat. And what you'll find is that I'm going to give you some illustrations over the next 3 weeks. It'll take me about 3 weeks. I want you to think of this. First of all, what people expected, and then what Jesus did. Now, again, I'm making this statement that he always did way beyond what anybody expected. Okay? So try and get hold of that. So you may have an expectation, he will do way beyond what you expect. You can't think big enough for God not to meet that need. You cannot imagine enough in your mind or my mind what God can do for you. He is that big, he is that great.
Amen.
And we need to, faith needs to rise in our hearts to believe that the God who loves us and gave his son for us will do those things that he has promised.
Amen.
So, let's have a look at some illustrations. What they expected and what Jesus did. We go first of all to Mark chapter 2 verses 1 through 12. I'm reading from the New Living Translation, so if you'd just like to listen up. When Jesus returned to Capernaum several days later, the news spread quickly that he was back home. Soon the house where he was staying was so packed with visitors that there was no more room, even outside the door, whilst he was preaching the word of God to them. 4 men arrived carrying a paralytic man on a mat. They could not bring him to Jesus because of the crowd. So they dug a hole through the roof above his head. Then they lowered the man on his mat right down in front of Jesus. Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the paralyzed man, "My child, your sins are forgiven." But some of the teachers of the religious law who were sitting there thought to themselves, "What is he saying? This is blasphemy. Only God can forgive sins." Jesus knew immediately what they were thinking, so he asked them, "Why do you question this in your hearts? Is it easier to say to the paralyzed man, 'Your sins are forgiven'? Or is it easier to say, 'Stand, pick up your mat and walk'? So I will prove to you that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sin." Then Jesus turned to the paralyzed man and said, "Stand up, pick up your mat and go home." And the man jumped up, grabbed his mat and walked out through the stunned onlookers. They were all amazed and praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this before." We have never seen anything like this before. Picture the scene. Jesus returned to Capernaum. He's back home, and the house is all of a sudden suddenly it's full of people. There's people gathered around Jesus. They want to hear his words. They want him to touch him. And there's these 4 guys, and they've got a mate who's paralyzed. And so they carried him. And they, by the way, there's not many. In fact, I don't know if anybody really knew that Jesus was the Messiah at that moment in time. I think there were only certain beings knew that who he was. God the Father knew who he was. "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." God the Holy Spirit knew who he was because he was dwelling in Jesus Christ, the Son of Man, the Son of God. And Satan, he knew who he was. By the way, whenever he met someone who was full of the demons, they recognized who he was. They would cry out, "Have you come to destroy us, Jesus Christ of Nazareth?" They knew exactly who he was. But most people did not know. And these 4 guys, I guess really they didn't really know who Jesus was, but they did know this. They knew if they could get their paralyzed mate to him, Jesus could do something about it. So they had an expectation that he could be healed by Jesus. I want you to notice this. First of all, they were convinced in their hearts that Jesus could do something. Absolutely convinced. So that's why they were bringing their paralyzed friend to Jesus. But they couldn't get there. There were so many, they couldn't get through the door. Verse 4 said it was full of people. Verse 3, it was full of people. But not only were they convinced, they were committed to getting to Jesus. And so what they did, they climbed on the roof. And I mean, how many people would do that? And they actually dug through the roof, and then they lowered the paralyzed man down. So they were convinced, they were committed, and then Jesus confirmed everything that they believed. Jesus actually then says to the paralyzed man, your sins are forgiven. And then the religious people, the teachers of the law said, this is blasphemy. Who could forgive sins but God? And then Jesus asked the question, think about this. Which is easier to say your sins are forgiven, or to say to a paralyzed man, get up and walk? Now, but then he says, so you know that the Son of Man has the power on earth to forgive sins. I will say to him, get up and walk, and he will walk. And the man got up and he walked. He was proving who he was.
Amen.
And the man who actually came just for a healing in his body had his sins forgiven as well. Jesus always went way beyond the expectation of people. Today it may be that you're seeking something from God. Something that you are hoping God would do for you. Please hear me and receive this if you would today. God will do exceedingly abundantly above all that you can think or ask. Amen?
Amen.
Let me give you another illustration. It was an ordinary day in Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. Now remember, I want you to remember this, what they expected and what Jesus did. What they expected, what Jesus did. Luke 5. One day, as Jesus was preaching on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, great crowds pressed in to listen to him, to the word of God. He noticed 2 empty boats at the water's edge, for the fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. Stepping into one of the boats, Jesus asked Simon, its owner, to push it out into the water. So he sat in the boat and he taught the crowds from there. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, now go out where it is deeper and let your nets down to catch some fish. Master, Simon replied, we have worked hard all last night and did not catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let down the nets down again. And this time their nets were so full of fish they began to tear. A shout for help brought their partners in the other boat, and soon both boats were filled with fish and on the verge of sinking. When Simon Peter realized what had happened, he fell to his knees before Jesus and said, "Oh Lord, please leave me. I am too much of a sinner to be around you." And verse 9 says this, "For he was awestruck by the number of fish they had caught, as were the others with him." His partners, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, were also amazed. Jesus replied to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you'll be fishing for people." And as soon as they had landed, they left everything and followed him. Watch this again. Jesus, is what they expected and what Jesus did. He's borrowed the boat to teach the crowd. He's teaching the crowds about the things of God. And then he says to Simon Peter, who is an experienced fisherman, "Let down your nets into the deep water. Lord, we've fished and we've worked hard all night and we've caught nothing. We didn't catch a sardine. We didn't catch anything. Nevertheless, because you say so, we will let down the nets." You know, if you know anything about fishing, you just never know where those fish are. I mean, you just got to try and work out. You've got to watch the water. You're looking for bubbles. You know, I know this because I've done a bit of fishing. You know, and the worst thing is when you go fishing, you don't catch anything. You're so disappointed, you know. But when you float, your waggler goes down, you know, or your alarm goes off, it's wonderful to catch that fish, and, you know, to bring in a real big fish, and it's very exciting to catch a fish. But these experienced fishermen, they caught nothing all night long. It was their livelihood. They would not only feed their family, but they would sell the fish. It was their business. They worked hard all night and caught nothing. Sometimes you ever feel as though you've worked hard and you've got nowhere. I've been worked really hard and got nowhere. Do you know, as I'm counselling people, sometimes I counsel them for weeks and months, even years, and I've gone away from people. I've got nowhere. I want to tell you when he does something. And he says something. Let down your nets for a catch. And so they let down the nets, and there was an amazing catch, bigger than they'd ever caught before. So much so that the boat began to sink. So they called their partners, come over and help us. And so they had to distribute the fish so that the boats wouldn't sink. The problem was now, Simon, an experienced fisherman, knew that Jesus was somebody special. Lord, depart from me. You see, I'm a sinner. You find Isaiah did exactly the same. When he was in the presence of God, he said to himself, woe is me, for I am a man of unclean lips. In the presence of God, your conscience pricks you. And you realise just how sinful we are. But let me tell you, he's one who forgives sins. He forgives sins. And he said to Simon Peter, he said, listen, from now on, follow me, and I will teach you how to catch men. And that word catch, in the Greek, it means to catch to life. When you catch a fish, especially, these fishermen know that, it was so you could eat it. They were going to eat the fish, it would feed the family, it would be their business so they could sell the fish. Right? But now he's going to teach them how to catch men to life. It's a noble cause, which you'll hear me talk about. We need a noble cause in our lives. It was just an ordinary day. Today's just an ordinary Sunday. And we're not as many as we normally are. But you know what? He's here.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a great expectation that he can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we think or ask.
Amen.
But let me just tell you, there's no small print. But there is a cost. In Mark's Gospel, chapter 8, 34 through 37, I'll close with this. Then calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you'll lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, and for the sake of the good news, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world, but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? Jesus speaking. Jesus speaking. So there's a cost. And these disciples, they decided that they were going to follow Jesus, the Messiah. They were going to follow him. And by the way, when you follow him, it's a noble cause. And we need to know what a noble cause is. We need to know why we get up in the morning. And let me tell you, a noble cause starts when you get up in the morning and you take your first breath and you realise you're still alive. You're this side of the dirt, which means if you're this side of the dirt, there's still a work for you to do.
Amen.
Yeah. There's something for you to do.
Yep.
So if there's something for you to do, you best get up, clean your teeth, have a shower, smarten yourselves up and go out and do something good in the world. I believe that's a noble cause. Yep. I believe a noble cause is to be kind. Yep. There's so much unkindness. What did the scripture say? Leave your selfish ways. There's too much unkindness. There needs to be more kindness. There needs to be more love. There needs to be more grace and more joy. Again, I just re-emphasize what I've said over the weeks and over the months. We ought to be those people. That when we wake up in the morning, we go out and we know we've got a noble cause. Sadly, and this is the criticism of people, I know lots of people who wake up in the morning and wish they hadn't. Serious.
I was one of those.
And that's the time.
I'll tell you tomorrow.
They wake up and they think, I'm not another day.
Yeah.
Did I have to wake up? I remember my dear secretary Cynthia, when Warren died, she used to say, didn't she, sir? Because we used to work in the office together. She'd say, I didn't want to wake up.
No.
I just didn't want to wake up.
Mm.
She said the only peace that I got was when I went to sleep and I had trouble getting to sleep, and then I'd have nightmares, and then I'd wake up and I'd have to face that day again.
Mm.
And then she did something very, very important. She made a decision that she was going to find 5 things to be thankful for.
Very good.
And so she get in the shower in the morning. And she came to the work very often in tears, and we'd have to pick her up, encourage her through the day. By the way, for a few years, I'm not just talking a week or a month, I'm talking about years. And then she decided she'd give thanks. And she gave thanks. Lord, I thank you I'm alive. I thank you that I've got children.
Mm.
I thank you that they're in good health and they've got good jobs. You know, and Warwick, dear Warwick, he was a great man. Most of you knew Warwick. He was a fantastic guy. He could walk with a prince and he could walk with a pauper.
Yeah.
By the way, he was the Prince of Preachers. He was a great man, a good man. Died at the age of 54. Some people don't want to wake up in the morning. Tell you if you can find the cause to wake up, a cause to believe that there is somebody who can do exceedingly abundantly above anything that you can think or ask.
Brilliant.
Your problem isn't big enough for our
Fantastic.
God. You can't produce a problem big enough that our God cannot meet.
That's right.
He can defeat them all.
Brilliant.
And I want to encourage you over the forthcoming weeks that we'll watch this, right? What people expected and what they got.
Amen.
Fine, it's far greater. Jesus always gives you greater than you expect.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
Well,